Right now, contractors installing steel windows at the abandoned Lindy Boggs Medical Center after NOPD swept and removed trespassers from that site. Andres Fuentes is live with more on what developers are doing to make sure that site is secure. Andres.
Right, if you live, if you work, or if you drive anywhere near this site, you're going to be seeing contractors here early in the morning until I should say when the day ends, installing these steel windows here at the site, specifically on the ground floor, to try to deter any more break-ins here at the property. Now, this is something that the site's owner, Woodward Investment, told me that this is an action they're taking after they were in a community meeting with the Mid-City Community Neighborhood Organization. One of their complaints was they wanted to see some of these break-ins detoured, and they said that they're fully listening to some of those complaints. Now, this all happened after it took a handful of NOPD officers around 30 minutes to sweep through the entire complex, making sure no one was living inside of the building. The site has stood vacant since Hurricane Katrina, and neighbors say that it's been a hotbed for homelessness, drug use, theft, and other crimes. Developers say that securing this site is the first step to try to transform this property into an assisted living facility.
We'll get this project done, and then we'll monitor the building and see if it's working like we think it'll work, and if there's any possibility that people are still getting into it, then we'll see what else is recommended by the security people to close the building. But we think this will prevent easily access into the building.
Now, the developers tell me that they're still waiting to see if the project will be approved for a HUD loan program, and with those funds, if they do get them, they'll be moving forward with making this facility a assisted living facility, and no word yet on whether or not they'll be seeking additional funds or grants on top of that. Now, the New Orleans Code Enforcement Director previously said that starting August 1st, there'll be new blight legislation that'll be taking effect, and he will be implementing that legislation on properties like this. That legislation calls for hefty fines as well as potential jail time for those who don't fall in line with those new ordinances. But for now, putting live here in Mid-City, Andres Fuentes, Fox 8, Local First.